Hi, this is Ray Bagnuolo, and today I'm in Dobbs Ferry, New York, one of the river towns along the Hudson River. I don't know how much of a shot you can see from here, but I'll try and walk out into the street without getting run over and give you a quick look. And there's the river down there. It's a great town, lots of fabulous history, and a lot of good people here. The reason I'm here today is this is the church that I came back to after leaving the church. This is the place that, after having had enough of trying to fit into some mold as a gay man in the church, I stepped away for a while. I've talked about that before. And then some people that I just came across, you know how those coincidences happen? Some people say it's God's way of being anonymous is what a coincidence is. But I came across some people, and to make a long story short, I ended up coming here to see what this place was about. I did not know what a Protestant was. I did not know what a Presbyterian was. I did not know that you would find pastors in this church who were working for full inclusion for the queer community as allies and so involved in social justice and a commitment to social justice and being there for others when needed. And among the things that originated here, actually two pastors, Joe Gilmore and Susan DeGeorge. Joe and his wife Rachel are amazing allies for our community. Joe founded the Midnight Run, which has been going on now for, 35 years, that brings food and comfort, basically, and clothing and hot soup and a conversation to folks living in homeless conditions in New York City. In fact, Joe found himself, I think, arrested more than once, probably, one time for chaining himself to the steps of St. Patrick's Cathedral in protest for the needs of people living in homeless conditions nobody was addressing. This church in particular was very important in the Presbyterian Church nationally for the full welcoming of the queer community and the work and worship of the church. Joe, Susan, other people here really worked hard for that, and both pastors, Joe and Susan, were brought up on charges by the National Church for performing same-gender loving marriages long before they were approved, even before some said they were legal. And the line back then was, "You're violating your ordination vows by marrying same-gender loving couples." And Joe and Susan both would reply, "We'd be violating our ordination vows if we didn't." So it was quite a powerful place that I walked into, and I found a home. And to make a long story short, I ended up becoming a member here. And from here, as the work continued to welcome the queer community in the Presbyterian Church, and also for the impact that had in so many other ways, I was grateful to be a part of it. And at some point, got the idea of going to seminary. And here I am, ordained as a Presbyterian minister. Been ordained now for 17 years, I think. So I wanted to come back here, and we talk about churches where people are welcome. This church, South Presbyterian Church in Dobbs Ferry, has an incredible history. So this church, you can see the sign out in front, it's just not afraid. In fact, it's committed to a belief in justice and that the God of our understanding is a God that calls us to love one another without exception, and then to do what it takes to make that happen. So the people here were very important for me. So I turn this around. And I love this church. As I said, Joe passed away a couple of years ago. His wife Rachel continues as a retired pastor. And Susan DeGeorge, who was the associate pastor here and an amazing friend and mentor of mine. Years later, Janie Spar and I would marry Susan and her wife Kathy. It was quite wonderful, and Susan continues to be such a strong force for justice in this area in particular, and throughout the church in the work that has been done. It goes back to what I talk about so often, that none of these changes happened in isolation. That where we are today and the way in which we find ourselves being able to move forward and to find justice in the ways we seek it, to find welcoming, to find places where the queer community is not just a sign that's up on the wall and says, you are welcome here, but they really mean it. And that's critically important to me. No one, if there is such a thing as sin, the sin is closing your doors to anyone, and in particular to the queer community. It is just so wrong, and whatever teachings there are that push people away, they're wrong. They're just wrong, okay? So, if you happen to be looking for a church or a spiritual community, a faith community, a place where as a gay person you are welcome, this is one of them, but it's one of many. It just takes a while to find them, and they can be found. I didn't think that was possible either, and yet here I am talking to you about just how true that is. So a little bit of retrospective from the Rivertown and Dobbs Ferry, and hope you're doing well. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you again soon. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.